guys will recall from the previous videos that obviously we've been working on the turbo Yaris, which is right next to me here. Now, in the last one, you've seen that the actuator wasn't sitting properly on the bracket that it had with the turbo. So what you're going to see today is obviously, yes, thank you. I'll just show them that a second, quickly, 2 seconds. So before Jack takes this away, this is the new actuator that is going on. It does need some adjustments. Jack is just making a custom bracket for it now, hence why he's going backwards and forwards, but you will see the completion of this car in this video. It's going to be over like a few days for us, but again, you guys will just see it in this one. The performance clutch is here, the flywheel's here, pretty much everything we need for this car is here as well. I believe it will need mapping as well after, which Wolfie at Sabre Speed is going to go through as well at some point. So you'll see all that again in this one video. It might be just one quite longish video, but again, it will be entertaining for you guys to see it from start to basically finish as well. If you remember in the previous videos, if you've not seen them, the issue was obviously the engine blew because it was basically running too much power, too much boost, and that caused it to basically implode on itself. The aftermath of that in the sump itself was seen in the other video. The piston and the conrod basically just, shall we say, all into the bottom of the sump. So that's why the engine's been swapped over, and then it's going to get mapped properly with a proper actuator, so it can actually open at a specific time as well, a specific PSI. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into a few prefabs, speaking over obviously what we are doing as we always do. We're going to try and keep all the rebuild pretty short so you guys don't get too, I won't say too bored, but there will be a lot of stuff. Again, it's going to be over 2 days, so we'll keep that very, very short, like I said. So we'll see you guys through all these cinematics and enjoy this rebuild. So in order to get this actuator to fit properly, if you saw in the previous videos, the actuator didn't sit and it was rubbing on the actual plate. Now, we've got to make a new one to make sure that obviously this does not happen and the wastegate opens when it should, whereas on the other, it was opening very, very late at around 8 psi, which it should be really ideally opening at about 5. So what's happening here is Jack's just going around a cardboard template. Now what he's going to do here is cut it out, draw around it a few times, make sure it's the right size and right diameters and stuff. Once that's done, he's then going to cut it out on the metal. Once he's cut it out on the metal, he's going to drill all the appropriate holes, which you can see him doing. Once that's all done, he's going to grind it all down with a grindstone and make sure that all the edges are all nice and smooth. When that's also finished, he's then going to use the polisher basically and polish all the metal up to make sure there's no loose edges and make sure it's all nice and shiny for when the customer comes and picks it up when it's all done. When you're looking at the actuator, you can see the end of the actuator does need adjustment. So what's going to happen here is Jack's going to have to cut that off so it can actually all fit in properly, and there's going to be no issues with the wastegate opening when it should. It's now time to put the flywheel back on and the clutch. Now the flywheel's getting put on and then it's being torqued to 49 Newton meters and then 90 degrees for the 1NZ engine. Now it's time to proceed to start putting the clutch on. This is the clutch that's going in. It's the XCD racing clutch from the single sport series. So this should be able to handle the power that's actually going through this rather than just a standard clutch on the Yaris. So you can see all nice and shiny. Looks awesome. So Jack's going to go ahead, put this in the car. Well, put this on the engine, should I say, because the engine's not in the car. So we're going to go ahead, do that, and then we'll show you us putting the whole engine back together while Curtis experiments with the new camera. We're not going to drag this out very, very long of putting the whole car back together, because you have seen it in the previous part. So we're just going to have a little montage clip, basically, of all different clips of everything going back in the engine. Now, I will tell you now, though, that the bracket at the back that holds the fuel lines, it was actually in way of the turbo itself. So we've had to cut that down and basically remount the bracket back on, just so the fuel lines are still kept in place. Now, the rest of the car is obviously going to go back together with the intercooler, the induction kits and the panels and such, as well as the front bumper. And then you will obviously see, probably around about now at some point, that the car is pretty much all back together. The drive shafts are in, the arms are all back in, and yeah, so the last thing left to do on this is obviously with the remap and sort the ECU, but the whole process is pretty much near done. Because Race Car Box was created for car enthusiasts by car enthusiasts, this is a monthly detailing subscription box where you can get money off and delivered straight to your door. Visit Because Race Car Box now and use the code RustyAutos10 to get your 10% off. The Yaris is now back together. Now, there is a few things that obviously we've advised the customer on, and that is to make sure it's mapped first. Excuse me. But they are sorting that somewhere else, so the mapping is going to get done on it. There's one other issue with it, is the drop links. Basically, they need new ones, so he's going to be fitting those himself. So this is pretty much now done. Jack is just topping up the liquids with the oil and such, and then we'll give you guys a little start up. Obviously, it can be started up and sitting on idle, but it can't be obviously driven ideally until the map's properly sorted. So once Jack's just switched all this stuff over, we'll show you a little start up, and you guys can see that the Turbo Yaris is alive again. Jack, it's alive, alive. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Saver! Thank you. Good boy. All right. Oh, the back's up and everything. Wow. Oh dear. I think it was just a bit of residual fuel.
So what was happening there is we were just turning the engine over just to get the oil where it needs to be, rather than just starting it up and things being dry on the inside. So what's going to happen now is we're going to just double check the oil, top it up where needed, and then we're going to obviously fire her up straight away.
Yeah, go for it.
Right guys, so it did sound a little bit rough on startup then, but that's again because it is constantly been sat near the old engine. So now everything's all freed up, it's running perfectly fine, everything's all gravy, you can see here, she's smoking again, but which is a good sign because it's actually running. So we're going to end this video here. Now what's going to happen in the next car that you're going to see that's going to be done, it's going to be the Aristo. As we mentioned, you are going to start seeing the progress of each car. So for example, we are working on more than one car at once, but what we're going to do is we're going to compress it down, so it's all like say in certain parts, just so you guys don't get confused. So for example, you've just seen the end of the Yaris, Turbo Yaris. The next thing you're going to see is possibly the Aristo, completed all the way through. But again, we are working on more than one car at once, so you guys will see that whole process for them all. Again, a lot of content for you guys. We are getting through these cars very, very quick. Once the Aristo is done, there's a Chaser, and then there is, I think the Super, Mark 4 Super is then coming in. Again, we're going to be trying to work on as many cars as we can at once. We're not going to stand around and wait for parts and such. We're just going to crack on and keep going backwards and forwards between the two bits, and just making sure we can get things done. So Jack's just checking all the levels on the Yaris now, and that's again another happy customer. Car is ready then to go. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure your notification icon is on, and take care guys.